The hard problem of consciousness is the problem of how physical processes in the brain gives rise to the subjective experience of the mind and of the world. If you look at the brain from the outside, you see this extraordinary machine, an organ consisting of 100 billion neurons that fire in synchrony with each other. When we see, visual inputs come to our eyes. Photons hit our eyes, then send a signal that goes up the optic nerve to the brain. It sends neural firings propagating throughout the brain, and eventually we might produce an action. From the outside, though, we look like a complicated mechanism, a robot. This is how science might describe us from the objective point of view. But there is also a subjective point of view. There's what it feels like for the agent who is seeing the scene. When we see something, we see colors, we see shapes, we have an experience from a first person point of view. There's something it's like to be us. And this is the conscious experience of seeing. It's part of the inner movie of the mind. This inner movie has many, many dimensions. It has dimensions of vision, it has dimensions of sound, like a normal movie, but it also has touch and taste and smell. It has emotions, it has thoughts, it has a sense of one's body. All of this subjective experience, and it's one of the most familiar facts in the world that we have this subjective experience. But it's also one of the most mysterious. Why is it that these physical processes in the brain should produce subjective experience? Why doesn't it go on in the dark without any consciousness at all? No one right now knows the answer to this question. In science and philosophy of consciousness, people use the word consciousness for many things. And some of the things are easier to explain than others. So sometimes we like to distinguish between the easy problem and the hard problem. The easy problem aren't really so easy. They're as difficult as most problems in science. But it's hard problem that's really the mystery. So sometimes we use consciousness just for the difference between being awake and being asleep. And we say, well, how is it that a system could be awake and and on its feet and responding? Maybe for this we can have an explanation in terms of the right neuron mechanism in the head that produces this behavior. Eventually, we will explain this, one of the easy problems. Or how is it that perpetual systems can discriminate some information and respond to it? How is it the brain can monitor itself again in principle that is a problem that is objective processing? An explanation in terms of neurons in the brain could explain it. So, for all of these, we have accepted paradigms from science and came up with some mechanism in terms of neurons that produce this behavior. Then we have solved the problem. So that's the easy problem. The hard problem is how it is that all these processes give rise to subjective experience. And what's distinctive about this is it doesn't seem to be a problem about objective mechanisms, about, for example, behaviors that the brain produces. We could tell a complete story and the objective mechanisms in the brain, the neurons that fire, the behaviors they produce, and so on, explaining all these functions: awakeness, responsiveness, discrimination, monitoring that there might be still a further question. Why is it all that associated with subjective experience? It's just a different kind of question. Ultimately, it's a question for science, but it's a question which right now our scientific methods don't have a very good handle on. So at least for now, it's a central question for philosophy. A theory that is promising in solving the hard problem of consciousness is a view that consciousness is actually present at a fundamental level inside the brain and inside all physical processes. This is the traditional philosophical view known as pantheism, that maybe all of physics involves some elements of consciousness at a basic level. Somehow all of this composes to yield my consciousness. It's a beautiful, unified, attractive view of the world where consciousness and the physical world might be integrated all the way down. The big problem for this view is, again, another version of the hard problem. But now in the version we can how can these small bits of consciousness at a fundamental level add up to the kind of single unified conscious experience that we have? People call this combination problem. How do the atoms of consciousness combine to yield human consciousness? Nobody right now has a solution to that problem, but at least people are thinking about it. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button.